This is my Module 4, Global Trends, Common Core, and Local Curriculum Inquiry. So beginning with some global trends, there are a lot of different things that could impact student learning in this day and age. However, I primarily focused on ones that were driven by the technology. In the classroom, I feel like that's something that we see continually just growing and becoming a larger part of what we're doing in the classroom, at least for most teachers. And I feel like for us to give our students the best opportunity, we should be integrating that technology at a new level. So beginning with digital literacy, a couple of things that I found as far as risks and opportunities. We know that distraction of technology is always there. If our students have a device in their hands, there's always potential for them to be distracted from what they should be doing on the device. However, at the same time, we can't let that hinder us from giving them those opportunities. We need to ensure that we're teaching them about digital citizenship and how to be responsible members of the technological society. Having that digital literacy curriculum in place so that we're teaching students all the different components that compile digital literacy in the society that we live in today. And this also provides a unique opportunity for our students to publish their work. Rather than doing all this work for just themselves or possibly for the teacher to hang on the wall, share maybe with their peers, students now have the opportunity to share out that work globally with others. So this is a great way to teach them that what we post, what we share, is something that can be seen by anyone, anywhere. Additionally, we need to make sure that students can understand various concepts of that digital literacy. When we talk about that curriculum, there are some areas that we need to make sure that we include. First of all, the ability to find and select information. We want to make sure that they understand what reliable sources are, what makes a source reliable, and where they should be digging for certain information based on the topic and the situation in which they're researching. How to collaborate successfully, utilizing their creativity, thinking outside of the box. We know that that is something that a lot of employers are looking for. We have robots replacing humans who are just doing that assembly line type work. So we want to make sure that we harness that creativity and teach students how to utilize that to make themselves even more successful. Critical thinking and evaluation is a skill that is important in all areas, but especially in the digital literacy curriculum as well. Cultural and social understanding is even more important as our students are now interacting with people who are in different locations, different cultures, and we want to make sure that they are respectful of those other cultures that they're interacting with. They've got to be safe online, so we want to make sure that that digital citizen piece is incorporated into that curriculum. Effective communication skills so that students understand the different types of communication, when it's appropriate, and how that communication should be changed based on various circumstances. And then finally, just the functional skills to ensure that they are able to go out, do what they need to do to be successful in various situations and circumstances, whether they are moving towards a college future or straight into the workforce. Hand in hand with that is the global mentality of being able to not only be mobile in their physical presence, but also online. So mobility is much quicker and much easier than ever before. So we know that students now have an increased access. They have a need for technology if they're going to be competitive in this world. And they also have varied access in their past. So they come to us in a great deal of diversity as to what they have seen and experienced. So we want to make sure that we are providing students with cultural understandings, again, that being respectful and mindful of differences in the various cultures. Communication skills, knowledge and awareness when they're dealing with others. We want to make sure we provide those opportunities to match those learning experiences. We know that our students are now competing in a global society. So when we have students from other countries who have these other experiences, we want to make sure we do everything possible to provide those experiences in our classroom. We want students to be able to understand not only who they are as a person, but who they are as part of our society and how they fit into that bigger piece of the world. We can make connections between similarities and differences between our students in our classroom and those in a more global approach. It also provides an opportunity for inquiry-based learning for students. There's endless opportunities for them to work with others, to show empathy, and they can truly be the experts when we provide these opportunities for them to work together with other students, when we give them opportunities to dive into other cultures and experience things such as virtual field trips or interactive opportunities that are based upon occurrences and locations outside of our present society. And then looking at Common Core, I'm glad this was one of the topics in our household. It has been a point of conversation, to say the least, for quite a few years now. As somebody in education, I think my perspective is very different than what that of my husband is. And so as I was looking at those proponents versus opponents, a lot of those topics were ones that have previously come up in just household discussions as we were looking at pros and cons and what that driving force of Common Core is. And I think a lot of times our parents, stakeholders as well, just don't understand what the purpose is and why educators are able to see those benefits. So looking at proponents, the first article I dove into was who's fighting for the Common Core. So a lot of what I found was that we want to make sure that we're preparing individuals regardless of what their path is beyond high school. Whether it's college or whether it's the workforce, Common Core truly looks at what do these students need to be successful beyond high school and beyond post-secondary as well. And we know that there has been a big gap between the United States performance and that of other countries on various tests as well as numerous skills. So part of the purpose behind that was to level the playing field and provide students with those 21st century skills so that we could be competitive in the job market again. And another key component of Common Core is the critical thinking, which we know is one of those skills that our students struggle with a lot of times as we ask them to move beyond just reciting facts or simply applying a logarithm and moving into actually applying the knowledge and taking it a step further to implementation. The next article I looked at was why I support the Common Core standards. So in this article, excellent overview of what those positives were for Common Core, rather than focusing on what it is that we feel like we've lost through this initiative. So in the core areas, the expectations are raised. It's important for all stakeholders to understand that this does not hinder what can be taught at a specific grade level or in a specific area, but rather it gave those non-negotiables for things that could not be avoided. So we've pushed those expectations, but then the states and the local districts still have the opportunity to add to what would be taught at a specific level. Driven by the collaborative state efforts, although not all states were involved in that, this was something that was done by the states. It was not a top-down approach where the federal government has pushed this on the states. And then it provides similar learning opportunities across the country. I am probably 10 minutes at the most right now from the Missouri border. My previous district was 10 minutes to both Missouri and Oklahoma. So when I heard something was coming out that was going to provide that cohesive transition for students who were moving back and forth between the three states, that was one of the most encouraging aspects of it to me, just because we saw such a disconnect when students would change within districts that were in such close proximity, and yet the state was telling us completely different things were important at various grade levels. And then finally, Common Core demands accountability by districts. So although we had some accountability before, this consistency at a federal level does increase the accountability. And then we've got to look at those opponents. So who's fighting against Common Core? Kind of surprised to hear that NEA was one of the organizations that gave some pushback against it. I guess I did not realize that they were ones who had originally fought back Government seems to be overreaching would be the complaint of some, or that it's violating the state rights. However, again, we come back to the topics previously discussed about how the states were involved in that and how states still have the opportunity to include their components as well. This is one of those statements I've heard from my husband, was the indoctrination of students. And many of them believe that it's extreme liberal ideology. So my personal thoughts on that is just the need to educate yourself about something before you comment. I feel like even a lot of educators were very quick to comment about this without understanding what was involved in Common Core. So when you look at those expectations across the grade levels, it then becomes very easy to see how this could be a cohesive guidance document rather than something that was pushing beliefs on students. And then many argued that this was a single approach to student learning. Although there are some of those non-negotiables, it still very much gives those pathways for students to approach learning in the way that's best for them. And again, another opponent of it, some would say that it was the involvement of politics that has driven what groups are currently opposing Common Core. Some because of fear of funding and other similar issues quickly got off the bandwagon against Common Core just for fear of losing that support. And some teachers were showing some concern, and yet a lot of this was more politically based than actually seeking out why teachers were concerned about this change and shift. So I think it's important for us to look at those ideas as well. And then finally, there was a lot of concern about how this would be associated with the tests. Would those tests actually change to reflect this accurately? And would that be used in teacher evaluations, which could be a very scary thing. So looking at my own personal position statement, here's what I came up with. I'm sure I'm one that continues to tweak and change things continuously, but I felt like this kind of gave a baseline. So student learning and growth must remain at the forefront of any discussion regarding standards or curriculum. Common Core standards will be used as yet another tool to ensure that all students have the opportunity to develop skills that will increase their ability to compete with their global counterparts in both college and the workforce. Quite a few sources were used in this compiling of information. I'm looking forward to hearing what others had to share. And again, I appreciate the meaningful topics and discussion throughout this class, and looking forward to learning more throughout the rest of the semester.